to prove that humans and zombies can actually have children together. I decided to capture a zombie that looked reasonably clean. A sudden disaster had just devastated the world. Nearly 90% of humanity had turned into the Walking Dead. And then there was me, ironically enough. I activated a dating sim system that had absolutely nothing to do with the apocalypse. Right then, an incredibly beautiful zombie appeared out of nowhere. My mind raced. This love system didn't seem to have any rules about species, did it? Besides, I couldn't just let her walk by like everyone else. Letting a zombie this gorgeous get away would be a total waste. The moment that thought crossed my mind, I pulled a length of rope out of my bag and waited for my opening. I timed it perfectly and let the rope fly. I pulled back with everything I had, snaring the zombie with pinpoint precision. She let out a scream, a deafening sound that echoed through the air. But a second later, I shoved a rag into her mouth to shut her up. The moment she caught the scent of human flesh so close, this zombie went absolutely ballistic. Her head lunged forward, snapping desperately at me. But while she struggled, I ignored the danger and gripped her hand with everything I had. At that exact moment, the system notification echoed inside my head. Congratulations, host, for completing the hand-holding mission. Target, Shun Qingwu. Identity, college student. Status, zombie. Affection level, 0. Hand-holding reward, 100 kilograms of fresh meat. First kiss reward, zombie virus vaccine. Total conquest reward, genetic evolution potion. Seeing those massive rewards made my heart race with excitement. It was a total game changer. Just those first 100 kilos of meat could keep me fed for 2.5 years. Not to mention those 2 legendary treasures listed right after. The path forward was clear, but I still had one massive problem to solve. How the hell was I supposed to make a zombie fall in love with me? After thinking it over for a moment, I reached out and pulled the rag right out of Shun Qingwu's mouth. She immediately started growling at me with pure, unadulterated fury, her sharp teeth bared and snapping. The sound of her grinding teeth chilled my blood, but without a word, I pulled a piece of fresh meat from my system inventory and shoved it into her mouth, silencing her growls instantly. She began to frantically tear into the meat, and watching her, I couldn't help but sigh with resignation. With a mouth full of fangs like that, the first kiss reward seemed impossible. It was completely out of my reach for now, but then, the door to the next room swung open, and a man and woman stepped out. "Hey, handsome," the woman said. "My husband and I haven't eaten in 2 days. You have so much food you're feeding a corpse. Could you share some with us?" They were a pair of newlyweds named Shun Liang and Lin Wan. They usually lived on takeout and didn't have a single scrap of food stored at home. In my past life, I actually believed their sweet, manipulative words, and I was foolish enough to share my food with them. I even thought they would be grateful to me. But it turns out, while I was out risking my life for supplies, they looted everything I had and even locked the door. They trapped me inside my own room, bolting it from the outside no matter how much I screamed. They never opened that door for me. They are nothing but ungrateful, backstabbing wolves. Did they really think I would ever give them food again? However, this Lin Wan standing before me might actually be useful. The moment that thought crossed my mind, the system interface flickered to life before my eyes. Name, Lin Wan. Identity, married woman. Affection level, 0. Reward for holding her hand, 100 kilos of fresh fruits and vegetables. Reward for the first kiss, a fully furnished 120 square meter apartment. Total conquest reward, a luxury villa spanning 1,000 square meters. Seeing these rewards, a cold smile spread across my face. 100 kilos of fresh fruit. It's not like I'm lacking food right now. But in this apocalypse, balanced nutrition is the ultimate priority. The two of them saw me smiling, and they actually thought I had accepted their request. Shen Liang immediately got cocky and barked. "First, give us 5 kilos of pork and 3 jugs of purified water." Those two almost made me laugh with rage. When did I ever agree to help you? Even if I have so much food I have to feed it to dogs, I'd never give a scrap to backstabbers like you. The moment I finished speaking, I pushed Shin Qingwu back into the room. Shen Liang just stood there, glaring at me with his teeth gnashing in fury. He wanted to attack, but he was too terrified of the zombie by my side. Back inside the room, I helped Shin Qingwu sit down. While I was at it, I pulled up the system panel. The result left me completely stunned. Shin Qingwu's affection level had actually increased by 5 points. I suddenly remembered the final stages of the apocalypse in my past life. Evolved zombies eventually developed intelligence. Could Shin Qingwu evolve too? How did her affection go up 5% just from a little bit of meat? Gaining points this way is going to be easy. Way easier than trying to win over a normal girl. I grabbed a few more chunks of raw meat and fed her until her affection hit 10 points. I originally planned to use this time to record a video, but I felt the urge to just keep feeding her. Then I noticed her little stomach was already getting round. I decided to stop right there, but only after stuffing the rag back into her mouth. Then, I started planning my next moves. 1 month after the zombie outbreak, humanity will face a period of terrifying, lethal cold. I only have about 20 days left to prepare, so first, I need to solve the supply problem. Food and water are the most critical factors for survival. Next on the list, warm clothes and metals. And medicine, those things should be easy enough to find. But the safe house is the real priority, and I don't have a single lead on one. It needs to be solid and maintain a stable temperature during that extreme freeze. Finding an existing building that meets those requirements is practically impossible. As far as I know, no such place exists in all of Shanghai. But then, an idea flashed through my mind. The reward for Lingguanzi's first kiss. I quickly summoned the system in my head. I needed to know, does the reward house already exist, or does it appear out of nowhere? The system responded, all reward houses are built from scratch. I can designate any location I want for the construction. I asked if I could add special requirements, like titanium alloy walls, a secret exit, and a medical lab. The system went silent for a few seconds before answering. The host must provide the blueprints. The system added that communication and medical gear weren't included, so I'd have to find those myself. Suddenly, a sharp knocking echoed from my front door. Lingguanzi stood there, looking small and helpless when no one answered right away. I could tell her heart was racing with pure anxiety. Both ends of the hallway were pitch black, and who knew when a zombie might crawl out of the shadows. She looked like she was on the verge of a total breakdown. Just as she was about to give up, I finally pulled the door open. A flicker of relief washed over Lingguanzi's face for a split second, but that relief vanished the moment she saw the butcher knife gripped in my hand. Her heart sank, and she started stammering out an explanation. Wait, don't get the wrong idea. I'm not carrying any weapons, I swear. I narrowed my eyes and scanned her from head to toe. Lingguanzi definitely noticed the way I was sizing her up. In the past, she would have found my gaze insulting. She probably would have slapped me across the face without a second thought. But now she was the one begging for a favor. She forced a fake model smile and whispered, I just wanted to ask for some food. I looked her up and down with nothing but pure disdain. Just lend me a little, she pleaded. I'll make it worth your while, I promise. As if I'd fall for a cheap trick like that. Tell me no, and I'll slam this door in your face right now. Hearing that, Lingguanzi didn't move a single muscle. She stood her ground, but I could see the gears turning in her head. She was terrified that a zombie might jump out of the shadows at any second. Just as I finished speaking, a guttural roar tore through the night air. The sound of a zombie echoed from somewhere down the hall. Lingguanzi's beautiful face turned pale with absolute terror. She had no choice but to grit her teeth and scramble inside my apartment. As I was closing the door, I caught Shun Liang watching from the apartment across the hall. The moment he realized I saw him, he ducked his head back inside like a coward. I let out a mocking laugh and slammed the door shut, thinking, the guy's a natural-born turtle. Inside the room, Shun Xinggu spotted Lingguanzi immediately. She started snarling like a beast, sending Lingguanzi stumbling backward in shock. She let out a scream and scrambled away, yelling, "Why do you have a zombie in your house?" My expression remained cold as I told her, "There's nothing to fear, it's just a zombie." Those words forced her to subconsciously compare me to her own husband. She thought about Shun Liang and realized if he had half my courage, she wouldn't be here. She wouldn't have to endure this humiliation, and the thought made her sigh deeply. "Just say it," she muttered. "What do I have to do for you to give me some food?" Minutes later, she walked back into the living room and snapped, "I did what you wanted. Now where is it?" I slowly pulled open the refrigerator door. I made sure she saw the inside, overflowing with fresh meat. In that exact moment, a dark thought crossed Lingguanzi's mind. Inside, she was thinking, what if I just knock him out and take it all? But in the end, her common sense won out. The truth is, I was on high alert, watching her every move. Lingguanzi didn't attack me, which actually made me feel a bit disappointed. I was just waiting for an excuse to act in self-defense. I pulled out a pound of pork and tossed it casually at her feet. Her face darkened as she stared at the slab of meat on the floor. I looked at her and said, "You're lucky you're even getting that much. Personally, I was only planning on giving you half a pound." She clearly had no idea how valuable a pound of meat was in the apocalypse. All she could remember was the way Shun Liang treated her before they married. Back then, her dowry alone had been $380,000. Plus, she had her name put on the title of the house. Lingguanzi took a deep, shaky breath. She finally knelt down, picked up the meat, and walked out with a frozen expression. Seeing her like that didn't make me angry, it made me thrive. The more miserable she felt, the sweeter my revenge tasted. I just need to find another person, a woman. Someone with a status like Lin Wansher's, and I can expand this 100-meter base. The only problem now is getting the blueprints. There might be survivors from the architecture department at Shanghai University. It looks like I'll have to head out. The next morning, I started scavenging for supplies. My first target was apartment 04, right across the hall. I took a piece of wire and slid it into the lock. I had it open in a matter of seconds. The moment I stepped inside, I heard the sound of someone chewing. They were eating voraciously in the bedroom. I pushed the bedroom door open as quietly as I could. I saw an old man with white hair. He was hunched over the bed, devouring a corpse. "How disgusting," I muttered under my breath. I grabbed a butcher knife and lunged at the zombie, but the blade barely bit in. Instead of killing him, it just made him go ballistic. He spun around, baring his fangs and claws as he lunged across the floor. He threw himself at me, but I sent him flying with a single kick. I sent him flying through the air with a single strike. Then I lunged on top of him. I started raining down blow after blow, hitting him with everything I had. I didn't stop until he was no longer a man. He stopped moving completely, and when I finally snapped out of it, I realized my butcher knife had 2 huge chips in the blade. It was good for slicing meat, but hacking through zombie bone was too much to ask. It was time to find a more suitable weapon for my surroundings. By the end of the day, I had cleared all 6 rooms on the 5th floor. I took out 3 zombies and found some malt juice, medicine, and protein powder. The haul wasn't bad, but my sharp butcher knife was a different story. The blade was completely useless now. Luckily, I found something else to keep me company. I picked up a baseball bat and gave it a few swings. It felt solid in my hands. Meanwhile, Lin Wanshi and Shun Liang were watching through the peephole. They watched the whole process of me annihilating those zombies. My frenzied state made them both gulp in fear, relieved they hadn't provoked me. Only after they heard my door click shut did they dare to creep out. They checked every room, hoping I had overlooked some scrap of food. But my sweep was too thorough. They found absolutely nothing. Damn it, Shun Liang hissed. That guy. He must be the reincarnation of a locust. He didn't leave a single crumb behind, not even for a friend. I think I found a steak, Lin Wanshi whispered, but it's completely covered in green mold. Shun Liang rolled his eyes and said, Wife, why don't you go ask him for more food? Lin Wanshi's face twisted in disapproval as she replied, but we just ate yesterday. I'm not even that hungry right now. What if I just don't go? You aren't hungry now, but you will be soon, Shun Liang snapped back. Are you going to wait until he gives all the food to those living corpses before you move? Seeing her hesitation, he took her hand with fake sincerity and urgency. Wife, I want to keep living by your side until the rescuers arrive. I'm sure we can make it if we just have enough to eat. Looking at her husband's pleading eyes, Lin Wanshi gritted her teeth. Fine, she sighed. I'll go. The moment she stepped toward my door, an incredibly delicious aroma hit her. Inside, I had gone straight to the kitchen and pulled out my electric rice cooker. The pot was overflowing with a rich potato stew and fresh rice. I popped open a bottle of high-end juice. Then I sat back comfortably on the sofa. It was time to eat. Lin Wanshi was seduced by the aroma, swallowing her saliva loudly. But seeing that I didn't say a word, she could only stand there awkwardly. After 2 bites, I acted as if I had suddenly remembered her presence. I stood up and grabbed a plate while saying, I almost forgot about you. I served a generous portion of meat onto it. Lin Wanshi's eyes lit up, thinking the plate was for her. Just as she happily reached out to take it, I walked right past her. I headed back to the sofa and removed the gag from Shun Qingwu's mouth. She immediately buried her face in the plate and began devouring the food. On the other side of the room, Lin Wanshi's expression was incredibly strained. She cleared her throat and tried to change the subject. So, you cleared out the entire 5th floor today? She asked. Yes, I replied. I'm preparing to leave, but I need to gather more supplies first. Lin Wanshi's eyes widened in shock at my words. What, you're leaving? It's crawling with zombies out there. Where could you possibly go? I smiled without answering her directly. I just looked at her and asked, What? You don't want me to go? She was panicking. If I took all the food, she and Shun Liang would starve to death. I looked at her and said, Now tell me, why did you really come to see me? I want to trade for some food, she stammered. I couldn't help but laugh. I had already guessed her motive. I knew Lin Wanshi would come crawling back, but I didn't expect her to be this shameless. For days passed in the blink of an eye. I spent that time clearing out the remaining threats and securing the area. I had effectively taken control of the entire building. Lately, Shun Qingwu's appetite had become absolutely terrifying. At first, half a kilo of meat was enough, but now even 1.5 kilos didn't fill her up. Yet strangely, her stomach never looked bloated at all. If her affection points weren't constantly rising, I would have stopped feeding her long ago. I looked at her, not caring if she understood, and made a silent threat in my mind. I've cared for you for 6 days. If you try to bite me, I'll leave you here to rot. I reached out and finally removed the cloth gag from her mouth. She didn't scream like before. Instead, she just opened her mouth, waiting to be fed. If you dare to bite me, you get nothing else to eat. Got it, I warned. Since she didn't say anything, I took her silence as a yes. I cautiously moved my hand closer to Shun Qingwu's face. Without any hesitation, she lunged forward and snapped her jaws shut. No. She froze at my shout, tilting her head to stare at me. I started recording another video of the process. I moved my hand carefully, but Shun Qingwu kept snapping at me like it was nothing. We went back and forth like that 10 times, and just as I was about to give up, she finally stopped trying to bite. She stared intently at my face, trying to figure out if I was something to be eaten or not. Inside, I was ecstatic, but I just slowly shook my head at her. Shun Qingwu seemed to understand my intent and actually stopped her attacks. Excited, I grabbed another piece of meat, held it close, and gave her a firm nod. This time, she ate it immediately. I tried it several more times, and she always waited for my nod before eating. I needed to know if she was only controlling her ferocity because she was tied up. I decided to run one more experiment and untied the ropes binding her. I placed a plate of meat on the coffee table, and Shun Qingwu stood up, staggering toward me. She looked at the meat on the table, then looked me straight in the eye. She actually raised her hand and pointed at the plate. My heart surged with joy as I nodded back at her. Only then did Shun Qingwu take the plate and begin eating greedily. Her table manners were still hard to watch, but her affection level had already hit 40. She was obeying me, so if her affection hits 100, will I have a well-behaved zombie subordinate? A dating system? This is clearly a system for raising a servant. Meanwhile, over the last few days, Shun Liang felt like he was sitting on hot coals. He knew I was about to leave, and whether it was for the food or for revenge, he didn't want me getting out alive. But he couldn't do it alone, because I'm a tough guy who can wipe out a zombie horde solo. So, Shun Liang started plotting with his wife. Honey, we can't let that brat leave, and we definitely can't let him take the food, he told her. Why don't you go ask him for more food, and while he's asleep, open the door for me. We'll take that opportunity to get rid of him. Driven by guilt and remorse, Lin Wanqi agreed to his request and nodded. Shun Liang's face lit up. Perfect. We act at dark. I'll go get ready. Watching him walk away, Lin Wanqi let out a bitter smile. He didn't even ask for the details of the plan. It was like he already knew everything in his heart. On my end, I planned to leave early tomorrow, so I tried to get to sleep a bit sooner. But just as I was settling in, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it with a smirk on my lips and asked, "What's wrong? Hungry again so soon?" Lin Wanqi cursed me under her breath, wanting to punch me in the face, but she held back. She even forced a seductive expression and said, "It's not just hunger, it's..." "Come in," I said, stepping aside, and as she passed me, I gave her a slap on the backside. She clutched her rear and glared at me in fury as I thought, "You're going to have to give me another cookie for that." Her expression was pure fury, but she didn't dare say a word. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Is this what it feels like to be the bad guy? I didn't feel a shred of empathy for her after how they treated me in my past life. Lin Wanqi lowered her head, but a flame of rage burned deep in her eyes. She thought to herself, just wait until tonight is over. Let's see if you're still laughing then. A few hours later, Lin Wanqi finally stumbled out of the room. She was trembling, leaning against the wall for support as she struggled toward the door. The moment she cracked the door open, Shun Liang slipped inside and whispered, "Is he asleep?" Shun Liang gripped his fruit knife tight, but he froze after taking only a few steps. A dark figure was standing right there in the doorway. The sight nearly scared the soul right out of Shun Liang's body. He hissed at his wife. "You said he was asleep," while Lin Wanqi stood there paralyzed. Then she realized, that wasn't me, it was the zombie girl I'd been keeping. Terrified, she whispered, "Honey, what do we do? Should we retreat?" Shun Liang was torn, but he knew if he missed this chance, he was dead anyway. Seeing the zombie looking dazed and confused, he felt a surge of false confidence. He shoved his wife forward and said, "Go distract her, I'll take her out from behind." Lin Wanqi began to shake with fear as he promised, "Don't worry, I won't let her hurt you." But in his heart, he was already prepared to sacrifice his wife to save his own skin. She wasn't about to do that. She didn't love Shun Liang enough to die for him. Right then, my voice rang out from the bedroom door, dripping with lost patience. "Hey, you two. How much longer do you plan on arguing?" The moment they heard me, their eyes went wide with shock. Shun Liang and Lin Wanqi felt their hearts nearly leap out of their chests. You weren't asleep? With all the noise you're making, I would have woken up even if I was." I flashed a smile as if nothing was wrong, and Lin Wanqi's face turned pale instantly. "Honey, let that zombie stop him. Let's get out of here fast." "You mean her?" I asked, as they watched me with total disbelief. I reached out my hand and gently stroked the zombie girl's head. Not only did she not attack, she leaned into my touch like a loyal pet. The sight was so terrifying they nearly wet themselves right there. How was this possible? She didn't just look human, her behavior was nothing like a zombie's. Suddenly, Shun Liang shoved Lin Wanqi toward me with all his strength. He turned tail and sprinted straight for the exit, leaving her behind. But he hadn't even made it 2 steps before I caught up to him. I had seen enough, so I knocked him to the ground with a single blow. "Wait, I have something to say. I beg you, please don't kill me." But I wasn't in the mood to trade words with him, so I ended him right then and there. Watching the life leave his eyes, Lin Wanqi looked like she'd seen a ghost. It was all Shun Liang's idea. He wanted to hurt you. "Please, I'll be your slave, just let me live." Deep down, Lin Wanqi was still clinging to a desperate shred of hope. She thought I wouldn't have the heart to kill her, but my voice was ice cold. "You're not sorry for what you did, you're just terrified of dying." Shin Qingwu walked over and pointed toward the 2 bodies on the floor. I shook my head. This place was ruined now, and there was no staying here. Early the next morning, I didn't waste a single second. I grabbed Shin Qingwu, hopped on my motorcycle, and tore away from the apartment. The silence of the morning was shattered instantly. The roar of my engine acted like a dinner bell for every monster on the road. Zombies began crawling out from every corner of the street. But that slow-moving horde didn't stand a chance against my speed. They could only watch helplessly as I disappeared into the distance. My destination was the campus of Shanghai University. I needed to find a building to hide in and shake the tail of the undead following us. Suddenly, a voice called out to me from the side of the road. I hesitated for only a fraction of a second. I ditched the motorcycle and moved toward the sound. I sprinted in that direction without looking back. The person who called out saw me coming and scrambled away from the window. I braced my hand against the frame, leaped with a single fluid motion, and landed inside. But reality isn't always as smooth as a movie. Shin Qingwu was completely stuck. He stood there paralyzed, having no idea how to climb through the window. A few eager students inside tried to reach out and help him, but I brushed them aside and said, "Move, I've got this." I leaned out over the ledge, hooked my hands firmly under his arms, and hauled Shin Qingwu inside with one effortless pull. Suddenly, a guy with the smug look of a rich brat spoke up. "You must be the rescue team my father sent, right?" This was Gu Qinggu, the mayor's son, who had been lying to everyone about a rescue to keep himself in power. I completely ignored the hand he held out to me. I reached out my hand and asked, "Who the hell are you? Do I even know you?" Gu Chengu's face darkened instantly at the disrespect. He had expected me to bow down, but I didn't give him an ounce of the deference he craved. Trying to save face, he sneered. So you're just another survivor, exactly like the rest of us. If that's the case, then you need to start following the rules around here. Seeing my defiance, one of his lackeys stepped forward immediately. He reached out, trying to snatch the backpack right off my shoulder. I slapped his hand away with a sharp crack and took a step back. I looked him dead in the eye and asked, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Gu Chengu put on a mask of fake righteousness for the crowd. "For us all to survive, you must hand over your supplies for unified distribution." I let out a cold, sharp laugh. Inside, I thought, why the hell should I care if any of you live or die? Gu Chengu raised his voice on purpose so everyone in the room could hear him. "If everyone were as selfish as you," he shouted, "we would have starved long ago. We are simply trying to use our resources in the most rational and optimal way." I couldn't stand listening to his pathetic speech for another second. I cut him off mid-sentence. "Whether you live or rot is none of my business. I have no intention of joining your little club, so I'm not handing over a damn thing." Gu Chengu's smile turned icy as he raised a hand and pointed toward the window. "In that case, I'm sorry, but I'll have to ask you to leave immediately." Outside that very window, the horde of zombies I had lured earlier was already swarming. They were clawing at the frame and drooling, waiting for a single mistake. There was no way I was leaving yet. Besides, I hadn't even finished my real mission. The reason I came here in the first place. There are plenty of classrooms here, so I'll stay for a few days and leave on my own terms. The students naturally sided with Gu Chengu and surrounded me, their faces full of indignation. "What right do you have to speak to young Master Gu like that?" one shouted. "If we hadn't saved you just now, you'd be dead already," another chimed in. "This is a school. What right does a stranger like you have to be in our classroom?" I couldn't help but let out a sharp, mocking laugh. The world is ending, and they're still trying to give me a lecture on morality? Did these spoiled brats who've never seen a drop of blood really think they could take me? I've crawled through mountains of bones and rivers of blood to get here. Just as the tension was about to snap, a beautiful girl in a long dress walked in. She had an air of purity about her as she asked, "What's going on here?" "This guy is looking for trouble," a student replied. "We were just about to throw him out." The girl, Luo Yi, frowned slightly at the group. "If he wants to stay, let him stay," she said firmly. "We have plenty of empty rooms. Why do you have to kick people out? Doing that is the same as sending him to his death. Everyone, just disperse and go back to what you were doing." The students hesitated, looking toward Gu Chengu for his approval. Only after he gave a subtle nod did the crowd finally start to scatter. At that moment, Luo Yi's gaze finally landed on me. Her eyes drifted past me and stopped on Xin Qingwu. "Is she your sister? What's wrong with her?" "Hello, little sister, what's your name? And why are your eyes so red?" Her enthusiasm was met with silence, so I quickly stepped into cover. "She's just wearing colored contacts," I lied, "and she's very introverted. She doesn't like to talk, so don't mind her." She bought my lie easily. After all, what kind of zombie just stands there without biting? "All right, you can stay here for now," she said, taking the lead. "The first to third floors are safe, so pick any empty classroom you like. But remember this, anything from the fourth floor up is extremely dangerous." Noon arrived before I knew it. I walked past a classroom labeled storage where a dozen students were lining up. They were all waiting to receive their meager food rations for the day. Most of those kids only walked away with a couple of dry crackers. Meanwhile, Gu Chengu was hiding inside the storage room, devouring a chicken leg. Suddenly, a thick, delicious aroma of cooked meat wafted through the air. The students didn't even care about the line anymore and turned toward the scent. They all went running down the stairs to find the source. Down in a second-floor classroom, I had started a fire and was busy cooking. Their eyes turned red with envy, and Gu Chengu actually had the nerve to walk right in. Gu Chengu tried to say something else, but I didn't care. I ignored him, grabbed a bowl of meat, and walked straight out. "Do you all want to eat?" I asked the crowd. The students nodded frantically, their eyes glued to the food. I cleared my throat and asked, "Is there anyone here who studies architecture?" The entire crowd fell into a heavy, dead silence. After a long pause, someone finally spoke up timidly. "The architecture students are in another building. They're probably all zombies by now." Disappointment hit me hard. I came here specifically for a designer. I needed blueprints for a shelter, but it looked like a wasted trip. But then, a soft voice drifted out from the back of the group. I'm an architecture major," she said. Everyone turned to see a girl with long, braided hair. She wore thick, black-rimmed glasses and looked incredibly shy. Being the center of attention clearly made her nervous. I looked her over with skepticism, unable to believe my luck. She looked so timid and withdrawn, I had my doubts. I wondered if she was just lying to get a free meal. Sensing the doubt in my eyes, the girl with the braids summoned her courage. "My name is Yuan, and I'm the top student in my class. You can ask anyone." "I believe you, but do you actually know how to draw blueprints?" I asked. She snapped her head up, looking at me with an expression of total shock. I didn't just take her word for it. The system panel had already appeared before my eyes. Name, Yuan. Identity, student. Specialty, architecture. Affection level, 0. Hand-holding reward, a solar power generator or a sewage purifier. Choose one. First kiss reward, a complete, high-tech surveillance system. Full conquest reward, for automatic turrets with 100 rounds of special ammo each. Incredible. Every single one of these rewards is a game changer for my base. If I could secure all of this, my shelter's defenses would be impenetrable. Yuan started nodding frantically like a chicken pecking at corn. Yes, I can. And do you know anything about specialized architectural designs? I pressed. A massive question mark practically appeared over her head, but she didn't care. For the sake of the food, the young girl agreed to whatever I wanted. Fine, you're hired. Your pay will be 1 bowl of meat and 1 bowl of vegetables a day. She thought the meat alone was a miracle, but fresh vegetables? She was stunned. She accepted the job and scurried off, looking happier than she'd been in weeks. But while she was celebrating, Gu Chenggu was seething with pure rage. He shot me a furious glare before slinking away with his tail between his legs. He wanted me dead more than anyone, but he knew he wasn't strong enough to try. I dismissed him with a wave of my hand as Lu Yi watched him walk away. Lu Yi scoffed, thinking, you have meat and fish to spare, so of course you look down on his food, but I'm starving. He muttered to himself that he had to find a way to seize my supplies. Meanwhile, Yuan finished her meal and was still licking her lips longingly. Seeing her like that, I asked, do you want to eat a little more? She shook her head and said, no, I already ate today's pay. If I eat tomorrow's portion now, I'll have to go hungry tomorrow. I was a bit surprised by her discipline, so I told her, then let's get to work. She gave me a firm nod and immediately switched into professional mode. She opened her backpack and pulled out a laptop. Tell me your requirements, she said, her eyes sharpening. I told her I wanted a shelter blueprint covering 100 square meters. It had to be incredibly solid, with a warehouse, a workspace, and an emergency exit. I also needed a living area and a bathroom included in the layout. She noted that 100 meters was too small for a truly safe, long-term shelter. She suggested we needed space for a cultivation area and a pen for livestock. I looked at her, impressed. This girl was even more meticulous than I was. She insisted we leave room for future expansion, and I told her to go for it. I asked her how long it would take to finish the entire design. She estimated several days for the draft, plus another 3 if I wanted modifications. Her gaze quickly turned determined as she said, no problem, 7 days it is. I took Xinqinggu up to the rooftop to find the perfect spot for the shelter. It didn't take long to spot a patch of wasteland on the mountain behind the school. The front was shielded by the classroom buildings. The back was pressed right up against the massive mountain face. Unless you were already inside the school, it was almost impossible to find. Better yet, the number of zombies in this specific area was low. I gripped my baseball bat and got ready for the real work. It was time to go down there and clear the zone myself. I climbed out through a first-floor window and scanned the perimeter. For zombies were loitering nearby. I tried to take the first one out quietly, but the other 3 heard me. The first one to lunge was a guy in a t-shirt. Judging by his build, he must have been an athlete when he was alive. Unlike the usual slow shufflers, this athlete zombie was incredibly fast. In the blink of an eye, he threw himself right at me. I didn't panic for a second. I simply stepped to the side and let him fly past. I used his own momentum against him and swung my bat with everything I had. It was a hit worthy of a pro. He really was an athlete. This zombie took a direct hit and could still move. I didn't give him a chance and immediately landed another blow. At that exact moment, the third zombie lunged. He was right on top of me, but I took him down with a quick leg sweep. I finished him off with 2 more heavy strikes. Then the last zombie tackled me before I could even stand up. He clamped his bloody jaws onto my bat and started gnawing with everything he had. I cursed under my breath and tried to shove him off, but I couldn't budge him. I gathered every bit of strength I had left for one last push. Suddenly, a small, slender hand grabbed the zombie's neck and tossed him into the air. I turned around in shock and saw that the hand belonged to Xinqingwu. The zombie I'd been fighting snarled and lunged at us again. I was still on the ground when Xinqingwu moved. She was a blur, reaching him in the blink of an eye. She gripped the zombie's neck with terrifying force. With one violent, bone-snapping jerk, she twisted his head around. The zombie hit the dirt with a broken neck, dead for good. I never would have guessed that someone so fragile-looking could possess such immense strength. It seems my theory was right. She really has evolved. I suspected it when her skin turned from grayish-white to a healthy pink, and now it's confirmed. I checked the system panel and saw that Xinqingwu's affection level had jumped to 50. She's much easier to please than a normal woman. No designer bags or expensive makeup needed, just a little food is enough. And the best part? She can actually protect me. I stared at her, but her face remained expressionless, as if she hadn't just snapped a neck. After a moment, I went back to clearing out the rest of the zombies. Xinqingwu only intervenes when I'm in mortal danger. The rest of the time, she just stands to the side and watches the show in silence. If I want her to work harder for me, I'll have to keep raising that affection level. I kept at it until it got dark, then finally headed back to the classroom building. I went into the men's restroom and started stripping down to wash off the blood. Then I realized Xinqingwu had followed me right inside. Bathing in front of a woman for the first time felt incredibly awkward. But then I remembered, she's just a zombie, nothing more. I finished quickly and was about to get dressed when I looked over at her. I don't know if zombies sweat, but the earlier fight had left her covered in blood too. I decided I had to bathe her as well. I quickly stripped her clothes off. Her skin was as white as jade, nearly blinding me. Just looking at her was enough to make my blood boil. I kept repeating to myself that she was a zombie until I finally calmed down. I hurried to help her wash, and a minute later, she was clean. I looked up at Xin Wu and said, "There, you should feel better now. More comfortable, right?" But unlike before, she was staring directly into my eyes. I thought I saw a trace of emotion in her gaze, but I wasn't sure if it was my imagination. Curious, I leaned in closer to get a better look at her face. The next second, Xin Wu suddenly lunged her body against mine. I didn't expect a surprise attack at all. It was impossible to dodge, but the violent tearing I expected never happened. Instead, a soft, sweet sensation spread across my lips. My eyes widened in pure shock. I didn't snap out of it until the system alert rang in my head. "Congratulations, host, on receiving the first kiss reward. You have gained the zombie virus vaccine. Use it for permanent immunity." I checked the system panel and got another incredible surprise. Who would have thought a simple bath would push her affection level to 60? She had officially entered the liking phase, so I looked at her and asked, "Do you actually have feelings now?" Xin Wu tilted her head with a look of pure innocence, clearly unable to grasp such complex words. So I switched to a simpler question, asking if she understood the people back at the church. She actually nodded this time, so I tried to push my luck with a few more questions. But every time the sentence got slightly complicated, Xin Wu just froze up. She looked lost and perplexed, making it clear that expecting her to act on her own isn't realistic yet. Maybe as her affection level rises, she'll truly be able to recover her human emotions. I'm sure she'll understand complex orders eventually, but for now, we need to move. I decided to get her out of the bathroom first and figure out the rest later. Back in the lounge, I pulled Ruan Yuanyuan aside to discreetly gather some intel. I discovered that the mini-fire station is located right next to the main administrative building's entrance. The problem is, getting there requires a dangerous detour. I'd have to circle around the massive horde of zombies currently occupying the sports field. I silently memorized every detail of the layout. Once I had what I needed, I told Ruan Yuanyuan to go get some rest. She headed off, leaving the room quiet and empty. Within moments, it was just me and Xin Wu alone in the lounge. I pulled out the zombie virus vaccine and emptied the entire vial into my arm, securing my permanent immunity. Meanwhile, on the third floor of the classroom building, two figures were creeping toward the stairs. One of them whispered nervously, "Are you sure nothing will go wrong if we do this?" The other scoffed in disdain. "What could happen? No matter how well he fights, it's still just two people. And one of them is just a little girl. Taishu, are you really afraid of a kid?" This person was Lu Yi. They moved fast. The two of them reached the lounge where I was staying and found both doors locked from the inside. But did they really think that would stop someone like Lu Yi? He was an expert at sneaking out of class. He grabbed the window frame, pried it open, and vaulted inside with a clean flip. Taishu wasn't nearly as agile as Lu Yi. He struggled to hoist one leg over the windowsill first. But just as he prepared to swing his other leg in, he saw a small figure rising stiffly inside the room. He was so terrified he could barely stutter out a name. Lu Yi, there's someone here." Lu Yi snapped into a defensive stance, but it was already too late. A slender arm had already pierced through his chest. Taishu stood there, petrified by pure terror. He spun around, desperate to flee back the way he came. But a hand punched straight through his chest before he could take a single step. Xin Wu stared at her hands, drenched in fresh blood, fighting a sudden, primal urge to lick them clean. The next morning, I woke up to find an excited Xin Wu standing over me. She was pointing urgently at a faint bloodstain near her mouth. My gaze froze instantly. "What is the meaning of this?" I asked, following her eyes toward the window. I saw two corpses with gaping holes in their chests and a pair of nunchucks lying nearby. I understood everything. But in that moment, I looked at Qingwu. She grabbed my hand and shook it back and forth, and I knew exactly what she wanted. I took her to the bathroom and washed the blood off her hands. By the time Ruan Yuanyuan arrived with her laptop, I had already tossed the two bodies out the window. A moment later, Gu Qingwu's punchable face appeared at the door, demanding to know what I did to Lu Yi. I looked at him with a perfectly calm expression. "Who is Lu Yi?" I asked. He told me to stop faking, saying it was the guy with green hair who followed him everywhere. I realized then that one of the intruders was Lu Yi, but I kept playing dumb. "Do you think I'm stupid?" he barked. "He only disappeared right after you arrived." I scoffed, wondering what kind of nonsense he was trying to pull. "Stop barking," I told him coldly. "If someone is missing, go find them yourself. Don't come to my place looking for trouble." The argument started getting loud. It began to attract quite a crowd. Several students gathered around to watch the scene. Among them was Lu He, who asked hesitantly if something had happened. Gu Qingwu's tone softened slightly as he told her that Lu Yi and Taishu were gone. Lu Yi thought for a moment and asked if they had maybe gone out to find supplies. "Impossible. They follow my orders. They wouldn't just leave on their own." I took the opportunity to jump in. "Are you really so sure they're that loyal to you? Who knows, maybe they were already sick of your face. They probably ran off while you were sleeping." Gu Qingwu's eyes turned blood red with rage. He looked like he wanted to kill me right then and there. Too bad for him. He didn't stand a chance in a fight. Lu Yi tried to de-escalate the tension before it boiled over. "Maybe they really did go out for something," she suggested. "They'll be back soon. Just be patient and wait." Gu Qingwu shot me one last icy glare. "If they aren't back by dark, I'm coming back to settle the score with you." He spat out the threat and stormed off with a frozen expression. As he passed the warehouse, the 4-eye guard stopped him with a report. Young Master Gu, the food in the warehouse is running low. We need to send people out to find more supplies immediately. The glasses guy turned to leave, but Gu Chengwu called him back. Wait, I'm giving you a new list. Organize the teams based on this. He wanted only those who obeyed blindly to remain, so he could finally crush the person who humiliated him. Suddenly, a sickeningly sweet voice drifted over from the distance. Young Master Gu, so this is where you were hiding. I've been looking everywhere for you. Gu Chengwu looked up to see Jiang Weiwei, dressed provocatively, strutting toward him. One of our classmates has a fever, so Lu He is busy taking care of him. The moment he heard that, a lecherous grin spread across Gu Chengwu's face. If Lu He was busy, wasn't this the perfect chance for him to blow off some steam? His gaze toward Jiang Weiwei turned predatory and wicked. Were you looking for me for a specific reason? Jiang Weiwei bit her lip and whispered, can't I just look for you because I wanted to? Of course you can. Actually, I was just thinking about you too. A flash of feigned shyness crossed Jiang Weiwei's eyes. Oh, stop it. You're making me blush with that kind of talk. Seeing her act like that, Gu Chengwu felt a surge of heat rush through him. The hunter inside him was fully awake now. A flame of desire ignited as he reached out to wrap his arms around her waist. Jiang Weiwei didn't pull away, but she leaned back slightly. Young Master Gu, aren't you worried someone will see us? I'd be so embarrassed. Gu Chengwu laughed loudly and said, then come with me to the warehouse to check the supplies. Weiwei nodded immediately, and we both headed toward the back. We entered the warehouse one after the other, and I locked the door behind us. I was anxious and tried to kiss her again, but she nimbly dodged me once more. Losing my patience, I scratched my head in desperation, thinking, what is it now? Jiang Weiwei first took a slow look around at the crates in the warehouse. Then she said indifferently, young Master Gu, it looks like there isn't much food left, is there? I brushed it off like it was nothing, telling her it was enough to last. I told her we just had to wait for my father. Then I started undressing and snapped, stop talking nonsense and hurry up. She gave a mocking little laugh and asked, do you really think your father has time to come save you? I froze instantly and demanded, what the hell is that supposed to mean? She just changed the subject, covering her mouth to giggle softly. I'm just guessing, don't be so tense. Oh, by the way, I just remembered Lu He asked for help. Goodbye, young Master Gu. After saying that, Jiang Weiwei turned and walked right out the door. I was left standing there alone, humiliated and paralyzed, looking like a total clown. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, I was busy clearing the area around my house. I was taking out zombies when I suddenly heard a scream for help in the distance. I gripped my baseball bat tight and looked toward the sound. I scanned the windows of the nearby buildings until I spotted her. High up in a large apartment complex, a woman was leaning out and screaming at me. I cursed under my breath, thinking, does this woman have a death wish? I knew she was trying to get my attention, but I had no intention of being a hero. Still, that woman's screaming ended up helping me without her even knowing it. The zombies in the wasteland heard the noise and started drifting toward the sound. I looked at Shen Qingwu and said, let's go. Looks like we can finish early today. But my leaving only made the woman in the building more desperate. Where are you going? She shrieked. Didn't you hear me calling for help? As more zombies swarmed her position, she finally shut up and started sobbing. Back in the classroom, I pulled Ruan Yuanyuan aside to ask her a question. Did you hear a woman screaming just now? I asked, and she nodded. Yes, I think it was Ms. 1. MS1? You know her. She's the school doctor, Ruan Yuanyuan replied. I thought about it for a second and asked, do you want me to go save her? The question made Ruan Yuanyuan freeze, her hand still gripping the computer mouse. I just think she might be useful to you, she whispered, and besides, that building she's in is the administrative wing. I see, I replied, processing the information. I took Shen Qingwu to get cleaned up, and 2 more days passed as the survivor count dropped. When I first arrived at this school, there were over 50 students left alive, but now, every single one of them was gone. I estimate there are only about 30 survivors left now. A sense of pure panic began to spread through the air. That day, I pointed at Shen Qingwu and gave Ruan Yuanyuan an order. Watch her for a moment. I'm heading to the administrative wing, and I can't take her with me. The real reason I waited 2 days to save that woman was simple. I needed this woman, Wen Ning, to suffer first. I wanted her to lose every shred of hope so that when I finally arrived, she would be pathetically grateful for her life. Half an hour later, I reached my destination. There were more than 10 zombies wandering around the entrance. I could take a few out with a surprise attack, but clearing them all was impossible. This had to be a quick, decisive strike. I took a deep breath to steady my nerves. Then I sprinted straight toward the building entrance. I gripped my fire axe tightly. The small horde of zombies spotted me instantly and let out furious growls. They began to close in from all sides. Seeing them swarm toward me, I swung my weapon with every ounce of strength I had. I had to break through before they could completely surround me. I lunged forward once again. I fought my way inside the small, local fire station. I found walkie-talkies, another fire axe, and a heavy-duty escape rope. I grabbed everything and prepared to leave. I was so focused on looting the supplies that I didn't notice it. But a zombie had managed to sneak up on me. It was only 3 meters away, but luckily, my reflexes kicked in. I slipped away and hurried toward the heart of the city, heading straight for the 3rd-floor bathroom of the administrative wing. That was where Wen Ning was hiding. By now, her consciousness was fading into a delirious haze. Through the fog, she heard a muffled sound. A loud crash echoed as the door was kicked in, followed by a man's voice. Is she dead already? What a waste. I guess I'm too late. When Ning's eyes snapped open and she screamed with the last of her strength. Save me. I tossed a baseball bat at her feet and said, if you want to live, move. And hold on to your weapon tight. When Ning gritted her teeth, leaned against the wall, and forced herself up. I can do this. I led Wen Ning out of the room and spotted a zombie in a hat. I saw it staggering toward us, so I took a few steps forward. I swung the axe and buried it deep into the former officer's skull. The zombie went limp instantly, and I couldn't help but admire the weapon. This axe is incredibly satisfying to use, I thought, while Wen Ning stood there stunned. To her, it looked like I was killing zombies as easily as taking a stroll. When I reached the stairs, I didn't slow down. She finally snapped out of it and came running after me. There were quite a few zombies on the stairs that had followed me inside. Outside, the open ground was too dangerous. I could have been surrounded from all sides. But here, the narrow staircase meant only one zombie could attack me at a time. I had the high ground, giving me a clear advantage over the monsters below. I could easily strike down at their heads from above. I began systematically putting them down. In just a few minutes, the pile of bodies began to grow and shift. The corpses of the undead were stacking up high. They completely covered the steps, leaving Wen Ning speechless. Once again, I had cleared the path. In her heart, my image was becoming something grand and divine. But right at that moment, her ankle was suddenly snatched. A female zombie with half her face bitten off was clawing at her feet. Wen Ning froze instantly, her entire body shaking like a leaf. Her eyes welled up with tears while I just stood there, watching. I asked her, are you going to use that bat, or are you saving it for New Year's dinner? My words made Wen Ning's pale face flush bright red. She hoisted the baseball bat high over her head. She squeezed her eyes shut tight. She swung with every ounce of strength she had while I watched coldly. I had left this one alive on purpose. I wanted to use the cruelest, most direct method possible. I had to force Wen Ning to grow up fast. I thought to myself, see you in the next life. After receiving my nod of approval, Wen Ning felt a surge of unprecedented joy. We made our way back shortly after. Yuan was by the window, shouting excitedly that we had returned. Shin Qingwu stood beside her, expressionless, but her eyes followed us from a distance. A crowd of students gathered around them, drawn in by the commotion. Jiang Weiwei was standing right there among them. In that moment, she was staring outside with eyes that sparkled. I led Wen Ning toward the window. Yuan was just about to pull it open, but Jiang Weiwei was one step faster. She threw the window open and reached her hand out to me. I ignored her completely and vaulted inside on my own. Unexpectedly, Wen Ning took Jiang Weiwei's hand to help herself up. Once she was steady, Wen Ning thanked her with a bright smile. Jiang Weiwei's smile looked forced as she said, no need to thank me, Miss Ning. The other students swarmed Wen Ning immediately, shouting with excitement. It was obvious she was incredibly popular among them. I didn't give that noisy crowd a second thought. I headed straight toward the inner rooms with Shin Qingwu. Wen Ning saw me leaving and instantly ditched the students to trot after me. The students looked at each other, baffled as to why she'd run off like that. Up on the second floor, 4 women appeared simultaneously at my door. Yuan adjusted her glasses, sizing up the other 3. She was the only one with a legitimate reason to be there. Seeing the 4 of them at my door left me slightly perplexed, but I quickly regained my cold composure. I lifted the lid of the pot, releasing an intoxicating aroma. The scent of the food quickly spread throughout the entire room. The 4 women standing in the hall froze in place. They caught the scent and simply couldn't help themselves. I watched them swallow hard as I served a bowl for myself and Shin Qingwu first. Then I served another bowl and handed it to Yuan, who shot smug looks at the others while she ate. Wen Ning had been starving for days, surviving on nothing but pure willpower. Because of that, her reaction to the smell was the most extreme of them all. Her mouth was practically watering like a river. Even so, she forced herself to speak and said, thank you for saving me. Suddenly, the system panel flickered to life right before my eyes. Target, Wen Ning. Identity, school nurse. Affinity, 50. Reward for holding hands. Medical kit and manual. Reward for first kiss. SLM virus vaccine. Reward for total conquest. The infirmary and everything inside it. That included all her high-end medical equipment, and I smiled with satisfaction. It seems ignoring her earlier was the right move. Her affinity jumped straight to 50. I looked at Wen Ning and asked, do you want to eat? She nodded quickly and whispered, yes, very much. Then work for me, I said. I'll give you the same deal as her. 1 bowl of meat and 1 bowl of vegetables a day. I gestured toward Yuan, who was happily munching away at my side. Hearing this, Yuan suddenly felt like the meat in her bowl wasn't as special as she thought. The food was so delicious, and Wen Ning accepted my offer immediately. Without a second thought, she agreed, and I served her a bowl right then and there. She started devouring it like she hadn't eaten in years. I turned my attention to the other 2 women standing there. Target, Lu He. Identity, art student and pianist. Affinity, 0. Reward for holding hands, piano skill. Reward for first kiss, sheet music collection. Reward for total conquest, master level artistic piano talent. Target, Jiang Weiwei. Identity, materialistic student. Affinity, 10. Reward for holding hands, a luxury vehicle of my choice. Reward for first kiss, a 100 square meter expansion from my base. Reward for total conquest, a massive 1,000 square meter mansion upgrade. I checked the system details and realized the vehicle reward was incredibly versatile. I could choose anything from a compact car to a high-end Ferrari. I could even opt for a heavy-duty off-road truck or a literal tank. The 100-meter housing expansion was also looking very attractive right now. It would allow me to double the current size of my safe house. It seemed like this girl, Jiang Weiwei, was actually the most important target here. The other rewards had some value, but they weren't nearly as vital. The cunning Jiang Weiwei noticed the shift in my gaze and sensed an opportunity. She smoothed her hair and spoke to me in a soft, suggestive voice. "Excuse me, but could I work for you?" she asked with a flirtatious smile. Ruan Yuan was standing right next to her and felt a wave of dread. A shiver ran down her spine as she watched Jiang Weiwei's disgusting attempt at seduction. She thought I only kept useful people around, but to her shock, I nodded immediately. "Fine, the pay is the same as it is for the other two." Ruan Yuan's eyes nearly popped out of her head in disbelief. What could Jiang Weiwei possibly offer to deserve the same treatment as her? Jiang Weiwei reached out for the bowl, letting her fingers graze my hand as if by accident. "You can also choose to stay here if you prefer," I added. "Of course I'm choosing to go with you," she chirped. Jiang Weiwei was a smart woman. She knew staying behind was a death sentence. She'd rather gamble on me than wait for the inevitable tragedy, and our movement soon drew a crowd. The onlookers started whispering and nudging each other as we prepared to leave. Where do they think they're going? Have they lost their minds? It'll be a relief if they actually leave. They've been an eyesore for a long time anyway. Lin Curson was standing in the middle of the crowd, watching us. She frowned as she listened to the murmurs of the people around her. Even though I had rejected her and spoken to her so harshly yesterday, she still couldn't just stand by and watch us walk straight to our deaths. She rushed out from the crowd and stood right in front of me. "Where exactly do you think you're going?" she demanded. "We're leaving. None of you want us here anyway, right?" My question left her speechless, but before she could respond, a voice rang out from behind. "It's true, we don't want you here. But the others don't have to leave with you. Miss Ning, you're the school doctor. Please stay, we really need you." That brat Gu Qingyu knew exactly how important a doctor was in this hellscape. He was trying to use the students to guilt-trip Wen Ning into staying. I felt a surge of rage. Did he really think he could steal my people right in front of me? But before I could snap back, Wen Ning stepped forward and spoke up. "There isn't even any medicine left here. If I stay, I'm useless. You're a teacher, Gu Qingyu. Just being here makes everyone feel safer." Gu Qingyu kept trying to convince her, but Wen Ning didn't hesitate for a second. She was firmly committed to following me out of this place. Once he realized he couldn't sway her, Gu Qingyu lost interest in the rest of us. To him, Wen Ning was the only one with value. The other two were just dead weight. "Stop talking nonsense. Let's move." I had no desire to argue with him, so I turned my back and started walking. The girls followed close behind, Jiang Weiwei trembling as she stepped outside for the first time. She let out a sigh of relief when she saw there wasn't a single living zombie in sight. The ground was just littered with rotting corpses as we reached the wasteland behind the school. I came to a sudden halt. Yang Weiwei panicked immediately, asking why I was stopping when the coast was clear. "Keep moving," I told her. "We're already here." She looked at the desolate ruins and probably thought I was insane for choosing this place. I didn't care what was going through her head. My mind was locked onto the system. Claim the real estate reward. A blueprint appeared before my eyes with a simple prompt. "Build according to plan? Yes or no?"